You're now joining the meeting.
Hello, this is Derek. Do we have any media on the line yet?
Yeah.
Beatty here.
Yeah. Okay, good. Sounds like we do, and that everyone's utilizing their mute button when they're not talking, which is glorious. Been a while since I've done one of these, but we're going to dust off the old teleconference here, and Coach will be calling in a minute. We'll get started with him, take your questions, and then planning for Georgie, pending him seeing his phone by 11:30.
DB, I'm on, if you're on.
Okay. All right, Coach. Well, we got a number of media that are on the phone here. Well, how we'll do this is when you're ready to ask your question, please say your name so Coach realizes who the question is coming from, and we'll get started here with questions for Coach, and then we'll follow up with Georgie when we're done. Reminder, if you're not asking the question, please keep your phone line muted to help people that are going to play this audio later on. Let's go ahead and get started.
Hey, Coach. Scott Beatty from WDWS. Just a quick question. It didn't seem like there was much momentum towards extending any eligibility for winter sports. Do you have any reaction to the fact that didn't happen?
Yeah, those are really hard choices and decisions that have to be made. And I think that as sympathetic as we all were that, tournaments and championships weren't played, the seasons were. And, we played our regular season. We were in postseason. I think it's our job as educators. I've always said I'm nothing more than a teacher. And part of this is teaching guys that, sometimes things don't go the way we want them to go. And this is a life, decision that impacts them. And it's one that didn't go their way. And, it's a tough one. It's hard, but yet, I get it and totally understand it. And, I'm not saying a lot of guys would come back. I don't know that at this point, but, we had played the regular season and played, 31 or 32 games, whatever it was. And, totally understand where the NCAA was coming from on that.
Hey, Brad, it's Jeremy Warner from 24/7 Sports. Just the uncertainty of the NBA draft process, just what does that play on you guys as coaches, and obviously specifically with I would assume, though?
Well, I think there's a lot of factors that are so unknown, Jeremy. I think that you can play into not knowing if there's going to be an NBA season, not knowing what the draft process even is. That trickles down into what agents are doing and how they're going about their business. And yet, unless you're pretty surefire top 10 pick, it gets pretty challenging to know what even that process is. In terms of, you've got to think that at this point you don't know what a summer league looks like, what the draft combine would look like, even if what the draft looks like and when that would be. So. There's a lot of factors that go into that. IO's in a position to examine all those things and talk with his people, and they have done the evaluation process. That's still out there for all the athletes to go through, and IO's in that process, and so we'll see. But you've got so many unknowns, and you've got a portal full of athletes right now. I think we're up 150 or so from last year, right in that neighborhood from the same time. And right now we don't know what the one-time transfer waiver is going to look like, and if that's even going to happen for this next season. And so there's tremendous uncertainty, which for me is we're in a good place. And if this is at a different point where you need 5 or 6 guys, it can be very, very challenging when you can't have visits or do anything other than just contacts through the phone and FaceTimes and stuff like that.
I assume he hasn't given you an answer yet. So with that, how do you kind of approach how you build your roster? And approach the transfer portal and all those things. And if you told them, hey, I need to know by this day or something like that.
No, we're never gonna put guys in that kind of situation. It's not about pressuring anybody. It's not about. It's always about trying to be in a position of support and help. And I would never put an athlete in a situation where we've always got a home, and I want our guys to always know that. We'll deal with that. I think our world today, Jeremy, is such that there's going to be there were 1,000 on the portal last year. There's going to be opportunities to be there, and we can be very, very selective. So I like the position we're in.
Thanks, Chris.
Well, Coach, this is Lauren. I'll ask you one. Looking at it, not so much as a coach, but looking at the big picture of the number of transfers, what's your take on what we're seeing with so many people moving every year?
Well, how much time do we have? Lauren, I wish I had a great answer for that. I think that it starts down at the lower levels. In my estimation, we see kids that start playing AAU basketball or out of season basketball, non-scholastic basketball, and they may play for throughout their livelihood doing that. They may play for 6 or 7 teams. They may play for 3. It's very prevalent in high schools to play for multiple high schools sometimes. So I think that has set a tone to a certain extent. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but I don't have the greatest answer. I think that every young man and young lady in whatever sport they're in, they have a different idea and a different agenda of what it truly is and what they want out of that experience. And if they don't get it, they sometimes they think the pasture's greener on the other side. So it's challenging. All we can do is try to build the best culture, build the best relationships, provide the best support academically, the best support athletically that we can, and sometimes that doesn't matter either. So it's just it's not in the world where we worry about class balance, and when you're a sophomore and you become a junior, you get a really opportunity because that upperclassman's graduated. But those times are pretty much gone.
Well, let me follow up with a question. With all the guys all over the country, whether it's Wichita State or Mississippi State or Illinois, the players are returning home. And does this tend to you lose your touch with them? Maybe you're not seeing them every day at school, and they're off someplace else making other decisions. Has this played into it this year?
Yeah, I haven't thought about that as much. I think that I think early on, that was an initial trend. Maybe just because it helped in the waiver process. As we've matured with transfers, I guess the one thing that We're now at a point where if this transfer waiver goes through, you can transfer for any reason and not have to sit. And I don't know if it'll be that'll be as prevalent, but we've got you got a variety of reasons. I don't know if there's one, and I haven't seen all the stats, Lord, to know why guys transfer back home or whatever it is. But I know early on in this thing, 5 to 8 years ago, that seemed to be a way to get a lot of waivers and help in that process. But that's soon going away.
Hey, Brad, this is Gavin Good with the Peoria Journal-Star. Last time you talked about how recruiting was going to be, pretty different and obviously over the phone. I know you guys are in the market feeling around for some grad transfers. How's the process of recruiting them changed, and how's it just been going, knowing no one can come to campus and you kind of got to do everything remotely right now?
Yeah, it's videos. It's, you're trying to get as much information to these prospects as you can digitally. You're trying to communicate with them, and we've got some guys in the 21 class who we've had on campus, and we're basically conducting what would be an official visit. We're doing that online. We've spent a majority of the last 2 weeks working on the graphics, working on the videos, working on the points of interest for each individual, knowing that we're not going to be able to, we were going to bring a good number of those guys to campus this spring. And I think you will see kids who've made campus visits, whether they were official or unofficial. I think you could see them start to commit and make decisions, knowing that they're in all likelihood probably won't be an AAU basketball season to go see. So there's no benefit for them not to. Some may wait until the spring, and just play this out. I think you'll see a wide gamut of different things. But this is our new norm. I tell everybody it's junior college recruiting. I've got good years of experience there. You just get on the phone and you build relationships with people over the phone. You do background checks over the phone, and try to get as much information as you can possibly get them via the digital route.
Hey, Brad, this is Paul Banks with the Sports Bank. What would be kind of a general estimate or maybe a ballpark figure kind of date where if things return to normal, then this next season would run its course as normal versus like if you say you can't get things started by about this time, then the season would be affected?
Yeah, I don't even know what that would be. I think you're talking about always considering first and foremost the well-being of student athletes and the training of them. I really don't know what that would be. I think we have a tendency in the sports world, in the collegiate sports world, to look at things as in terms of an academic calendar, and we want to look at summer school or we want to look at the fall. Unfortunately, this pandemic doesn't run like that, and I think there's a lot of great leadership at the University of Illinois. I think within the Big Ten office, there's the same thing, and those guys will have tough decisions to make if this does drag on, and we want what's best for our student athletes, our fans, and again, I dodged that question because I really wouldn't know what that looks like yet, knowing that the interest of best interest of our student athletes is first and foremost.
Thanks, Brad.
Hey, Brad, this is Joey Wagner from the Decatur Field Review. You mentioned, your experience in junior college recruiting and, kind of doing it in a way where you're on the phone or videos. I guess what's the key to establishing those strong relations, whether it be the phone or video, or, with kids that you may not have, especially in the transfer market, that you may not have, previously a strong relationship with?
Well, I think the one thing is literally just that, making sure you're communicating with them, and then it's your background checks. And now we have all kinds of media outlets to watch guys play and get a feel, but we've heard of some schools out there that are calling some of these grad transfers and calling some of these kids and saying, hey, you have 24 hours to make a decision or we're out. And there's so many kids in the portal that they can do that. We're not doing that. We're being very, very selective, and we're in a great position in our recruiting to not have to take a chance. And we've got to make sure we've got the right fit for our locker room and the right fit for the pieces on the court. And if that fit doesn't happen, we're great. So I'm excited about the possibilities that are out there, but we'll continue to keep digging in our background checks and keep checking the transfer portal. And again, right now you don't know. We don't know if some of these kids who are freshmen, sophomores that are leaving, if they're eligible next year. We don't have any clue as what this one-time transfer waiver is going to look like next year, or if this gets pushed back another year. So there's a lot of things up in the air right now.
Hey, Coach, it's Derek Piper. You mentioned
Scott Ritchie
being able to be selected.
Go ahead, Derek, and then we'll do Scott next. Okay. Go ahead, Derek.
You mentioned being able to be selective with filling out your roster. I know you're still waiting on Iowa's decision, and you also mentioned with the transfer reform, potentially other guys having decisions to make. But what would you be looking for as a skill set or position, or what you could potentially add to what you already have?
Yeah, I think we've got a nice, we feel like we're in a good position, really at every spot. I think that you start getting very detailed. I think there's we could potentially use a stretch 4. I think it depends on the one-time transfer rule. If kids sit, if kids are eligible, most of the world doesn't know about Austin and Jacob, and they're sitting out, and what they bring to our table. We get so consumed with grad transfers and our recruiting classes, we forget about the number one team in the country this year. Most of the year was Baylor, and their roster was all sit-out guys for the most part. So, we forget about those guys. But if we had a sit-out guy, it could be a combination of anything from a big to a point guard. So we're evaluating everybody and all positions, and if a stretch 4 was the right fit potentially, with the right body type and the right skill set, we would that's one that we would maybe move on.
All right, Brad, it's Scott. Kind of maybe a follow-up to that a little bit, just with Austin and Jacob both being eligible this coming season. How has that maybe shaped how you go about filling out your roster, where you've got those two guys as maybe can slide in where you've lost two similar type players to the portal yourself?
Yeah, I mean, there was a plan in place a year ago, and I think as you try to continue to build on your and project the best you can, those two guys are basically the same size, but they're very different. And Austin can play 1, 2, and 3. Jake can probably play 2, 3, 4. So they bring different things to the table in what they do. And to have those two guys go through a year of practice was huge. There was times in practice where on the scout team they were a handful, and they're older, and they both gained weight. So I think that's allowed us to be in a position we don't have to panic. We don't have to feel like we have to go out and just take a piece, that's a question mark. And we're in the position now. It's about our culture, and it's about the locker room and fitting in, and if it's a grad transfer, making sure they're coming here for the right reasons. So again, we can be pretty selective, and I love the concept of sitting out guys. Like I said, Baylor's an unbelievable model. And if that guy happens to be out there somewhere, we may take him. It's just an opportunity to be selective and try to make the best choice we can.
Yeah, just kind of one more sort of off of that. Just you brought in grad transfers and set-out transfers in your time at Illinois. I mean, do you have a preference, or do you see pros and cons maybe of both?
Well, I think there's pros and cons. I think when you start studying the grad transfer history, I think there's been 3 grad transfers since grad transfers happened that have played in a Final Four. I think there's been 5 or 6 that have played in an Elite Eight or started somewhere in those numbers. They're very few. You start looking at the productivity some of these guys have. There's a lot put on a grad transfer. Learning a brand new system, learning a new team. If guys transfer up a level, it is a very steep challenge, and we're playing at the highest level in the best league in the country, in front of the best crowds in the country, in the toughest environments. And all of that can be a lot for some guys. And so we're pretty selective there. I love sit-out guys. I mean, it's a year of knowing a system, learning terminology, getting in the weight room, getting stronger. And that's happened in both our guys' cases, and where they've added close to 20 pounds. They deal with our nutrition. It's just it's a year. It's in my time as a coach, it's very, very seldom has there ever come anything bad from a guy sitting out. They get academically acclimated. Their basketball get acclimated, and there's very little failure or anything negative that happens to a guy that comes in and sits out and continues his career after that.
Brad, this is Brad Surdy. What is different about evaluating on video as opposed to getting to see them in live action?
Yeah, a lot. And here's the one thing I have to do in video, and this is just me, and I think everybody's different. I have to watch video multiple times because I get focused on different things, and it's very challenging sometimes to understand the level of competition and what they're doing. I have a tendency to try to figure out their IQ. You don't hear, so you don't hear how kids talk about during a game and communicate, and a lot of times some of the intangible leadership things get lost on film. We can all evaluate the running, the jumping, the shooting on film, but I really try to focus on the IQ pieces. And, I hate highlight tapes. Highlight tapes are, everybody thinks those are the best things ever. And, they put all their made baskets and all their dunks, and I just bypass those. I want to see a game. I want to see if you jump to the ball. I want to see if you back cut when you're supposed to, and what if you get in triple threat when you're when you catch a ball, and how your reads are in ball screens, whatever it is. And so I have to watch those games multiple times to really try to make decisions on guys.
Hey, Brad, it's Jeremy Warner again. I'm just wondering, are all your guys, who's home, who stayed on campus? There's so many international guys. I'm just wondering how you guys all kind of set up.
So Georgie is on campus. Ben has been on campus, but is actually in with a friend in Bloomington. So he is still here in the States. Everybody else is back home, and we do twice a week, every Monday night, every Thursday night. We do Zoom, where we get on and we're together, as a group, and laughing and telling jokes and talking about what's relevant and talking basketball. So that's we're doing that twice a week. Fletch has an app where everybody gets on, and basically he's putting them through a workout every day of the week, the best we can through just body weight stuff. And then Josh has a once a week for every student athlete, has a teleconference. So we're trying to stay connected the best we can, but we've got a couple guys in pretty tight quarantine, and Kofi being in New York City, and Trent's down in South Florida. So those guys aren't getting out much.
Hey, Brad, it's Gavin again. What are you telling your players in terms of what they can do to train on their own right now? I know guys may or may not be able to get in gyms and work by themselves.
Yeah, very few of our guys are finding gyms. Very few of our guys are finding even access to parks. So we're trying to tell them to be creative. If you've got steps in your house, you can treat it like a Stairmaster and do that. Everything's body weight stuff, sit-ups, push-ups. We are encouraging guys to go, if they can, to go run on their own. We've had a guy out that has access to running some hills, which social distancing is not a problem out there. And then, sometimes it's just simply taking a basketball to a parking lot or a driveway and creating your own routine. And again, everybody's situation is different. I'm really big on that. Guys are going to have to use their imagination and be creative. And again, it's like I told our team last night. We're when you're a top 20 basketball team, spring break's over, and it's time to figure out how to continue to grow, and we're continuing to work with them constantly, and Fletch is doing that, and he'll make adjustments as need be. But this is kind of a unique situation, and guys are going to have to be self-disciplined a little bit to handle some of those things.
Hey, Brad, it's Joey Wagner again. You being the only one on campus, I guess, how have you seen him kind of handle this? I would imagine it could be kind of a lonely season, being one of the few guys left.
Joey, I didn't hear any of that.
It was very mumbled, Joey. I think you may have been on speaker.
Am I good?
Yeah, now I got you.
That's better, yeah.
Brad, with Georgie being the only guy on campus, I guess, how have you seen him handle this? Or I guess, what have you heard from him? I imagine it can be a pretty lonely feeling being the only one around.
Yeah, actually, I should say Kipper's still here in town as well. Kipper never went home, and they both have apartments. We reached out to Georgie, almost every day or every day with communication. If you know, we all know Georgie. Georgie can stay entertained pretty easily. He told me he was trying to master walking on his hands and doing headstand push-ups. And my daughters show me all of his TikToks that he does. He seems to be doing very, very well, and just keeping the lines of communication open. And the Ike is open on campus, so he's getting he's getting to eat and do all of that. So he's managing very well.
Hey, Coach, it's John. Was it a question of Georgie couldn't get home, or was it better for him to stay here?
Both. Yeah, it was, and again, when all of this happened, over the, we came back right off the tournament. We didn't know exactly what the status was. He had not planned on going home, at all. So there wasn't any ticket bought, or there wasn't any of that. We assumed we were going to be making a deep run into the NCAA tournament, so there wouldn't be any spring break. And and then it was just a matter of convenience for anybody internationally. And this all happened so fast within a couple of days in terms of decisions to be made. So he knows he's safe and in the best place he can be right now. And the same was true of Ben as well. So it was easier for international guys to not have to travel at that time. There were a lot of restrictions being placed on guys.
Brad, Scott Beatty, sounds like we should expect transfers from here on out, of course. But Alan Griffin sort of surprised us. Was it a surprise for you?
Well, I'm not going to get into everybody's the personnel side of things. I'm never surprised by anything today, and so there's nothing that is shocking anymore. You almost become I guess numb to it is the best way. But he's made his decision for what his reasons are, and you wish him nothing but the best, and you feel excited and how he continued to improve here, and so I wish him nothing but the best, and hopefully he's in that position to find what he wants.
Hey, Brad, Eric Fisher with Rivals.com. Just how does Alan Griffin just leaving the roster just affect what you were trying to do last year and build with next season's current team?
Well, I mean, it's we've got two really good guys sitting, so we've got replacements, and that's built in, and we feel like we're in a terrific position with our recruiting class. We understood what our needs were going to be and what we were potentially trying to continue to get better at, and we feel like we've addressed all of those, and we've got two older guys in Jacob and Austin, and like I said, we've got a recruiting class where we feel like we addressed the needs for the current year and years beyond. So we feel like we're in a really, really good spot with our roster.
Hey, Coach, it's Derek again. You kept mentioning culture, fitting in with the locker room in terms of bringing in a transfer. Normally, you get to do that by having them on campus for an official. Could you see yourself taking a player without being able to bring them in physically to your campus?
Yeah, we're going to have to. I mean, we'll have to do that, and I don't see that the recruiting band's going to lift. At any point. That's my expectation. That's why, we've got a great staff. We're all making calls constantly about guys. We're trying to, go beyond just the place they currently are, going back to, their high school coaches, their AAU coaches, just trying to deal with guys. If we don't know about them, we're not going there. And again, it's been an unbelievable road to get here, and we've got an unbelievable locker room, and that's the one thing that we've all fought for and worked really hard at, and we're not gonna jeopardize that.
Hey, Brad, this is Gavin again. With no NCAA tournament happening, do you feel like recruits see your season any differently, or do you think they see all the gains that you guys made in the same way they normally would?
No, I think we're getting the response has been incredible, and obviously you get an unbelievable bump when you're in a Sweet 16 or you're playing in the NCAA tournament, but everybody knows. And, that's the one thing about the basketball world. I mean, everybody's pretty well connected. There's so much coverage on TV, and everybody's pretty dialed in to the success that we had this year, to the fans. So we've had unbelievable responses, not just in this region of the country, but literally around the world, in terms of everybody's dialed into to our growth.
Brad, this is Matt Stevens with Illini Maven Sports Illustrated. You mentioned some of your players, some of your staff members being in hot spots, Io, Kofi, Brent, those type of roster guys. Have you had any scares in this regard in terms of health? Or you had any guys had to go get tested?
We have not, no. And we worry about those guys a bunch. It's one of the things we talk about in our Zoom teleconferences all the time, is washing your hands, staying in, we've been very fortunate that way. So hopefully that continues. But as this thing continues to grow, it's scary, and we want those guys to be very safe.
Brad, it's Kevin again. Lovey earlier this on Friday, I think, said that if anything, all this time in isolation or at home just makes him think a little bit more about football. Is it the same way for you, or are you kind of making time for other things that you normally don't do? Is it just kind of looking back obsessively and looking ahead obsessively?
Well, that happens. There's no doubt. I think that the biggest challenge for myself is we just go so fast all the time. And, I've been a 5:30 in the morning wake up guy, and you go to bed when you go to bed. And, we've had something in our house that we haven't had in years and years and years. And now we've gone, today's day 15 or 16, basically, since we've gone remote for us. And I've got family dinners, and those are unbelievable. Those are awesome. But I wake up doing basketball stuff. We do it throughout the day. I'm constantly on the phone. I'm finding I'm spending much more time on the phone than I did in the office, just because it's different. And I'm talking to my staff repeatedly, both individually and as a group. I've reached out to. I've watched a lot more videos on basketball stuff than I ever have. And usually you're recruiting, and that's your gear. You're traveling, and you're getting ready for this, and home visits, and So I'm really diving in and thinking about the future a lot. We're starting individual meetings with our players this week that usually happen right after spring break, and gathering that intel. So we're spending a lot of time doing that as we move forward for the future. So it's a lot of both. I've cleaned closets. I unload the dishwasher every morning. I make coffee every morning. Those are things that I haven't done, and my wife hasn't kicked me out yet, so it's a good thing.
Hey, Brad, this is Alex Butsy from the Daily Illini. What makes Chin Coleman's relationship with the guards and other players on your team so special compared to other coaches you've been around in the past?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I think one, he does an unbelievable job of relating, and he relates as a player. He's got great charisma. He can be funny. He can be serious, and he's got a way to attract guys to him. He's got a magnetic personality. That helps. Players have to trust you, and they have to believe in you. And the one thing that he does is he works really hard. He's extremely loyal, and he relays that to his players. Our players know that he has their best interest, and he's trying to help them. And when an athlete believes in a coach and has the ultimate respect, you can really coach those guys up.
Brad, it's Rob McCauley.
Brad, this is Matt Stevens again. I wanted to ask you if I know that the date is just so far out there, and it's I don't think any of the experts know, so I don't think anybody would expect you to know. If this does bleed into the fall, have you had a staff conversation or constant staff conversations about how to get guys like Andre Carbello and Coleman Hawkins up to speed? It could be a truncated off season in the fall. Just get them ready to go.
Yeah, no doubt. We have those. That situation probably occupies most of my thinking and planning. And just because everything becomes expedited, and it happens so much quicker, you miss out on the pace with which you can do things in the summer is much slower because you have time. And we see guys, and all you have to do is go back and look at what Fletch does in the 8 weeks in the summer with guys' bodies, and realize you missed that. And there's a mental component that comes with that as well. You create your toughness. You create a lot of chemistry in those weight rooms. Freshmen and new guys are learning, what that's like and what it's like to be really sore. And the veterans build credibility with leadership because they help them get through it because they've been through it. And let alone the basketball stuff. But, we talk a lot about that, and it occupies a lot of my time in trying to, this is how we may have to structure practices, how we may have to do a few things differently in terms of our workouts in the fall if we have school in the fall. It's when you start in the fall and you've had the summer, you just kind of pick right back up and you can move a little quicker and start getting to some advanced things. We're gonna have to be on point with our teaching and what that looks like if we're in that position.
Brad, it's Rob McCauley. Could you talk about the sources for news and information that you personally and the DIA are using to filter out the good news, the true news from things that are just rumor and speculation?
Well, as I sit here right now, I don't have my TV on. I'm trying to avoid that till about 3 o'clock at least every day. because I don't know how to do that. You can say you listen to CNN, you listen to Fox, you listen to the local news. I read a lot, and I don't pay a whole lot of attention, to anybody. I'm listening to Tony Fauci, Dr. Fauci, and those people probably as much as anybody from the medical side. And then Josh and our staff have done an unbelievable job in keeping us up to date. What's going on? We're getting constant emails from the NABC, from the NCAA, with all the things that are on their plate, and then Josh is having to relay those. And guys, the job Josh is doing right now is incredible. That guy is spending probably 10 hours a day on phone calls dealing with all this and trying to relay it to student athletes, to administrators, and he keeps us in the loop. So the one thing I do know is I'm buying into Josh and what he's telling us, and everything else beyond that is I'm not listening to anybody secondhand, and all the coaches are talking. We're all talking NBA people, so we're just trying to wait and see, and it's so fluid, it changes every day, Rob, that you don't believe too much.
Okay, we're going to, at this time, we've got Georgie on the line, so I'm going to have Coach hang up unless Coach has a message for Georgie, and then we're going to open it up for your questions for G. So,
hey, Derek,
Coach, you're still on. Georgie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey, G. Hey, I want to make one statement. I want to, first of all, I know that there's I hope everybody's doing their part, and staying in and trying to flatten the curve. And I know we have a lot of people that are affected and by all of this, but I do want to say a very public thank you to all the frontline people and all the doctors. I know we have cases here in town that are helping, but this is something we can all do our part in to help. Stay inside, wash your hands, stay healthy, and the closer we can come to listening and doing that, the sooner we can get back to what our new normal will be and get back to doing what we all love to do and talk about. So please, I hope everybody handles their responsibilities and takes this very seriously. Again, a big thank you to all the frontline. So, G, they're all yours, and if they have all followed your TikToks, they know that you're occupying your time pretty well. So, thanks, guys, and stay safe.